Can you tell me about the classes that you're going to teach here at the Kansas City Original Quilt Festival?
I can. I have 7 classes total. I have 2 piecing classes. One is Jelly Roll Magic. I understand that it has actually quite an extensive wait list on it right now, which makes me very excited. Sad for the people who can't get in, but very excited. And I've actually written a pattern for that specific class, and I am in the final editing stages of that right now. My pattern tester is working on her quilt top right now, and so I should be able to go to print with that pattern as early as next week, which I'm very, very excited about. I also have an easy grid piecing class that I will be teaching the 10 Sisters method of piecing, where we're going to take those pre-cut squares and put those onto a grid. Once we sit down to the sewing machine in that class, you will not have to get up and your quilt top will be complete. It is an amazing process, very fast and extremely accurate if we do the prep work correctly. So in that class, I will be providing the kit. You only need to sit down at your sewing machine and bring, a handful of your typical sewing supplies, some scissors, a seam ripper, those kinds of
What was
those
the
kinds
name
of
of that
things.
class again?
Easy Piecing Grid, or Easy
Okay.
Grid Piecing, I think is the name of the class.
Right.
And then I have for applique, and I will have actually applique blocks that are prepped for you. If you get to class early, you'll have your first pick of which applique blocks you want, because I have about 5 or 6 different styles of applique for you to choose from. And I will walk you through the proper markings, which minimal markings, so that we have minimal lines to take out once our quilting is finished. But the purpose of that class will actually help you understand how to make that applique work look like it's standing on top of the quilting that can be put behind it, which is really, really fascinating. I've also got another class called Let's Ruffle Some Feathers, where I'll walk you through the different types of feathers. We'll do bump backs, we'll do the molar feathers, which I call wiggle feathers, and I'll show you why in class. And how to turn those corners inside and out so that we can really get those corner, like in your borders and things like that, to make look like the feathers are nested in there together. We'll also look at like some melon shapes and some what I call the inverted circle kind of a thing, like similar to what you'd find in a double wedding ring quilt, on how to fill the feathers in those areas. Also how to take like a square and make it look like an hourglass, which is really kind of fun and kind of an error. And then I've also got a layering design class where we will look at the feathers and how to make it look like they're sitting on top of a grid or kind of woven into a grid, and do some other background fillers and things like that. So we'll combine a lot of different designs into making it look like one cohesive element to those wide open spaces that we have in the more modern quilts.
Well, that's the one that I've seen in a lot of your work, and it's just amazing how the quilting that you do, how it just rises up the applique and rises up the other dimensions of the quilt. You do such a
thank you very much. That's definitely one element of my job that I call it a job. I don't even really feel like it is a job, because I get to come down here as soon as I can every morning and get to work, but and I enjoy it so much. But I've also got 2 lecture classes called one called Let's Talk Quilting, and we will discuss how I come up with what design to put where, from the panto side, from an edge to edge, all the way up to like a heavy custom quilt, where I get inspiration, marking tools, things of that nature. And then one class that I think is important for both the long armers and piecers, it's called the conversations you must have with your long arm quilter. And I specifically put that in there in the class description, that it's welcome, piecers and long arm quilters are welcome, because when a client comes through the door, sometimes they say, just do what you want.
Yeah.
Well, my do what I want and your do what you think you want sometimes don't match. So there really are some things, even if the piecer gives the quilter complete open rein or whatever, there are still some things that we need to discuss. Are you opposed to hearts? I had one client that did not want hearts at all on a quilt, and it was a Valentine quilt, but she was adamant that she just didn't like hearts. There were no heart fabrics, hearts are printed on a lot of our Valentine fabric, but there were no hearts on her Valentine quilt, and she did not want hearts quilted into it. Those are things that I would need to know. A lot of things like that long armors need to know before we get started. So batting choices, thread colors, and things like that.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of information that I think is really critical. So that'll be a great class.
Yeah, I hope it will be.
You have got a huge variety. I mean, it's just all over the board about, what people can learn from you. Do you have, what do you want the students to come away with?
I want them to feel inspired that they can go home and start creating a style of their very own. That was really important to me when I started out. And that's why I took a lot of classes from a lot of different teachers. Because, one thing that I might hear from one teacher, I hear in a different way from a different teacher, and they were teaching the same thing. But we all have different ways of learning. And it's important to expose yourself to a lot of different teachers, a lot of different styles. Someone might relate to me very well, right. And that same, person can also relate to a different person. I relate a lot of, to a lot of different people for different projects. If I have a very modern quilt that I needed help with, I might reach out to a different quilter than I would if someone wants feathers everywhere.